It wasn't the first time the media had questioned the financial dealings of religious figures, but this time it was different. There was no warning, no public accusations, just a sudden and overwhelming federal presence as if they knew exactly what they were looking for. The government's official story was vague at best. FBI agents arrived at Joni Lamb's mansion in the dead of night, their vehicles cutting through the silence like ghosts in the dark. Neighbors woke up to flashing red and blue lights reflecting off the massive iron gates that guarded the estate. The whispers unofficially revealed a much darker story about financial mismanagement, suspicious donations, and possible fraud. It wasn't just about money, it was about secrets, about something that was hidden deep within Joni Lamb's home. The story was so unsettling that it had prompted a full-scale FBI operation. Federal agents moved purposefully through the property, passing expensive artwork, beautifully arranged furniture, and lavishly decorated halls. The house exuded wealth that could only be built through years of influence and control. But they weren't there for the jeweler, the cars, or the furniture. When they first arrived, it appeared to be nothing more than a locked door in one of the mansion's less-used wings, but it was reinforced and hidden, unlike anything that would have been found in a typical home. The agents worked quickly to get past security measures before breaking through, and what was behind it caused the room to go silent. They hold the semi-annual telethon there, which I believe they call Heart for the World. There is a room there that is filled with cubicles and phones, and several hundred people who spend their days answering phones. The prayer department was in charge of answering calls during the telethon when people wanted to donate, but occasionally the volume of calls was so high that all employees of the company had to be on standby in their phones. This was one of those times, and when my phone rang, I answered it to find this sweet little elderly woman crying and telling me that she is completely in debt, has nothing at all, but has a small amount left on her credit card, which she plans to give to Daystar because the person on air claimed that if you give $1,000 today, God will return $10,000. I don't really have words to describe how awful I felt when I took that card number and ran that card because it felt so wrong. That was the first time I ever stopped and asked myself, do I want to be a part of this? It was a private study, but not the kind with religious texts and family photos. And instead, it was different. The walls were lined with rows and rows of filing cabinets, each carefully labeled and locked. A huge safe sat against the far end of the room, its digital interface blinking as if daring them to try and crack its code. The documents were scattered across an expensive mahogany desk. The agents wasted no time in searching every cabinet, opening every drawer, and confiscating every file. They found a number of startling documents, including detailed ledgers of financial transactions that resulted in offshore accounts, records of money being funneled into unknown organizations, and perhaps most unsettlingly, a list of donations that simply didn't add up. Large sums of money had been moved under the radar, their sources unclear, and their destinations even murkier. However, that wasn't the most horrifying discovery. A hidden panel in the study's bookshelf led to a secret chamber, a room that shouldn't have been there. The air was thick with dust, as if the area had been left undisturbed for years, but the contents told a different story. Shelves lined with locked boxes, some of which contained old tapes, while others contained documents so old they appeared ready to fall apart. In the middle of the room was a desk that looked eerily similar to the one in the study above, with drawers full of handwritten notes, letters, and what appeared to be personal confessions. Some of the tapes were signed, while others were left anonymous. Then came the tapes. A small, unmarked box contained a number of VHS tapes, each labeled with a date and a name. The names were familiar figures from the religious and political figures who had long been suspected of shady activities, but had never been apprehended. What was on those tapes was unknown to anyone outside the investigation, but the way the agents handled them carefully, as if they were holding evidence too dangerous to be revealed, told the public everything they needed to know. The tape's discovery changed everything. They showed me some documents, emails, and text messages, and I said, okay, I'm going to have to go back and talk to Jonathan and Susie, and I'm going to do that this morning to hear their side. But what I won't do is not going to continue. Back and forth, I saw what they showed me. I heard both sides of the story, and I definitely felt some things when I was talking to Jonathan and Susie. I'm going to post this interview today, and I'll let everyone break it down, criticize it, and say things like, hey, I'm going to post the interview because that's the fair thing, the right thing. People can feel whatever they want to feel about it. I'll also make a third and final video in which I share what they showed me, and I'm going to go talk to Jonathan and Susie, after which I'm going to get Jonathan. What had begun as an investigation into financial crimes now seemed to be something much larger and more dangerous. Why did Joni Lamb have these recordings? Were they intended as blackmail insurance proof of something far more sinister happening behind the scenes? As the FBI continued their search, more shocking details emerged. This time, a hidden compartment in the basement of the mansion held a collection of artifacts, some dating back centuries, religious relics, ancient texts, and documents that, according to some sources, contained information that had been kept secret for generations. Some of the texts seemed to refer to forbidden religious doctrines, while others appeared to be coded messages that the authorities found difficult to decipher. Finally, the safe was opened after hours of trying to crack the code. What they discovered inside left them visibly shaken, stacks of cash that could not be traced, more tapes, but the most unsettling discovery was a set of handwritten letters, signed with initials that matched those of some of the most powerful people in the nation. The contents of those letters are unknown and sealed away as part of an ongoing federal investigation, but the fact that they were concealed in a location that no one was supposed to find spoke volumes. Outside the mansion, the press flocked in a desperate attempt to find answers. Rumors went viral, with some demanding that the tapes contained confessions that could bring down entire organizations, and others asserting that the documents contained evidence of high-profile corruption. The FBI, however, remained silent and refused to comment as they continued their search. As the night wore on, more discoveries were made, including old photos showing meetings between people who shouldn't have been in the same room together, and bank statements pointing to secret fraud. The FBI concluded their operation as quickly as it had started, packing boxes of confiscated materials into their vehicles and vanishing into the night. The estate, which had been a symbol of power and influence, now stood as a crime scene, its halls echoing with the weight of unanswered questions. In one particularly damning revelation, a ledger detailing payments made to anonymous entities was discovered. These transactions suggested something far darker than simple financial mismanagement. What had Joni Lamb been involved in? The world held its breath when the news broke that Joni Lamb, a woman who had dedicated her life to preaching faith and salvation, was at the center of a scandal that could shake the foundations of everything she had built. And with each new piece of evidence that surfaced, it became more and more clear that this was just the beginning. Most importantly, how deep did this go? The Lord had told me a few weeks ago, pick a comment. Or like you joined seeing your new host with your spouse in D. He said pick a comment and for viewer input. Well, because we've received a lot of emails, so when Susie saw that it had Doug something about him, she left. Well, she turned around, left. She kind of made a scene in front of the producers. They told me she huffed out. Jonathan said he wouldn't read it. And so, which was just startling, but I know now that's why the Lord wanted me to do it, because he wanted me to see the heart issue going on here. So, Jonathan came in the studio, so I was already up scene, and, he said, Mom, I'll read the second comment, but I'm not going to read the first one. I then asked why. Because I'm not comfortable, he added. And I responded, well, I'm going to remove you from the show because I don't feel comfortable having you on it. As you know, Jonathan is a wonderful young man who has never really given me any problems in his life. When he argued with me a little, which is completely out of character for him, he left. He then sent me a kind of cryptic email, so instead of answering it, I called Jimmy Evans, who has accompanied me on this journey through every stage and is aware of every detail of our relationship. Media frenzy theories, speculation, and unanswered questions. The moment news. When it was revealed that the FBI had raided Joni Lamb's mansion, the media went crazy. All of the major networks rushed to cover the story, and within hours, theories were flying around about what they had discovered, what Joni was hiding, and how someone with such a perfect public image could suddenly find themselves at the center of a federal investigation. Talk show hosts, investigative journalists, and self-described internet detectives wasted no time in formulating theories. Some claimed it was just a financial scandal, a case of fraud or poor management that had gotten out of hand, while others thought something much darker was going on. People wanted to think that money had been used for good causes, but skeptics had long murmured about extravagant spending, offshore accounts, and dubious transactions. The FBI's refusal to disclose specifics about what they had seized left the public to fill in the blanks with their own theories. The first theory to gain traction was that the raid had uncovered illegal financial dealings. Joni Lamb had built a religious empire, and with that came millions of dollars in donations. The discovery of hidden financial documents inside the mansion seemed to confirm those suspicions. Reporters combed through tax returns, business filings, and donation reports in an attempt to uncover discrepancies. Some claim to have discovered evidence of large transfers to unidentified accounts that may have been connected to shell corporations. Others pointed to extravagant purchases that were out of keeping with Joni's modest persona. All of her financial transactions were suddenly scrutinized, but then new information surfaced that made this case about much more than just money. Sources close to the investigation revealed that FBI agents had discovered a secret study, a hidden safe, and the theories then took a darker turn. What were the tapes? Who were the names on the documents? Could Joni Lamb have been involved in something more serious than in financial crimes? Some people conjectured that the safe held classified material, possibly evidence linking her to political figures or even blackmail material. The idea that a religious leader had been covertly gathering damaging information on influential people sent shockwaves through the media. Internet forums were ablaze with rumors. Could this be part of a larger conspiracy? Was Joni involved in something more profound than her public persona? The idea that she had been sitting on potentially explosive secrets only increased the intrigue, but independent journalists suggested that the tapes might contain conversations, confessions, or meetings that were never intended to be made public. However, the theories didn't end there. A more extreme theory started to circulate online that Joni Lamb had been a part of a secret network, an underground organization that operated in the shadow of political and religious circles. Some claimed the FBI had found documents detailing hidden alliances between powerful businessmen and high peripheral religious figures. Others conjectured that her mansion had been used as a meeting place. The internet has a way of taking a story and running with it. Soon, trending YouTube channels released hour-long in-depth analyses of the case with titles like Joni Lamb's Hidden Vault, The Secrets the FBI Doesn't Want You to Know, and The Dark Truth Behind Joni Lamb's Religious Empire. Some of these videos received millions of views overnight, with comment sections full of theories ranging from reasonable to completely ridiculous. Next, I spoke with a prophetic minister and 200 pastors who had been in ministry for 30 years. They all essentially said the same thing. This is your Alamo, and you have to stop this because this is your husband, and you should be treated with respect and honor. I hope that God has done incredible things over the past 30 years. And Jimmy said that if you don't submit to the people in charge of your ministry, it will become chaotic. He sat there, Susie sat there, John sat here, and I sat there. Over the weekend, I was furious at some of the things that were said in the email because they were so absurd. This wasn't their comment. This was a viewer. It went something like this. Hey, we're having fun watching Joni's husband, Dr. Doug, host with her. He's doing a great job and I really like the song she created, No Fear. In the meeting, I mentioned that since it was Tuesday, Jimmy could visit. You have a wealth of life experience, and Marcus and I have fought many battles to build this ministry. We began with nothing at all, but our children have been fortunate to live in a glass house. The mainstream media has attempted to maintain objectivity, but the demand was too great. Even the most reputable media figures couldn't help but add their own theories. Some pointed out that high-profile scandals frequently had layers that took time to unravel. Others suggested that the investigation could be bigger than just Joni Lamb, and that this was just the tip of the iceberg. Late-night talk show hosts had a field day with the story, cracking jokes about what was going on. Then came the biggest shock yet, rumors of a black book found inside the mansion. According to leaked reports, the FBI had found a list of names inside the safe names of people who were either donors, business partners, or something else entirely. The fact that this document had been kept hidden raised immediate questions. Who was on the list? Were they involved in something? Satire segments featuring televangelists and money-hungry preachers ran headlines like God's Judgment or the IRS, and When Your Mansion Has More Secrets Than the Bible. However, beneath the Hummer, there was a genuine sense of unease. Illegal, and most importantly, why had Joni been monitoring them? Some thought it was a list of innocent donors, but others were certain it was something much more sinister. Conspiracy theorists seized upon the notion that Joni had been recording covert transactions between powerful people. Theories ranged from a list of dishonest insiders who had collaborated behind the scenes to political blackmail. As media outlets rushed to confirm these allegations, yet another bombshell was dropped. Sources claimed that surveillance equipment had been discovered inside the mansion, including high-tech recording devices that shouldn't have been in a private home, encrypted hard drives, and high-tech recording devices, and even security footage purportedly showing secret meetings. The FBI declined to comment, but the leak indicated that investigators were taking the discovery very seriously. This revelation sparked a new wave of theories. Was Joni secretly recording conversations with influential people? Was she involved in espionage, blackmail, or something even more sinister? The media firestorm became unrelenting. Each new theory that surfaced was more sensational than the last. Some conjectured that the entire investigation was a setup by Joni adversaries to bring her down. In the meantime, her followers were divided. Some remained fiercely loyal, insisting that she was being framed, while others struggled to reconcile their faith with the growing scandal. Religious leaders weighed in, with some urging the public to wait for the full truth and others distancing themselves from Joni. However, the biggest question remained: what was the FBI really after? If the investigation was only about financial fraud, why were so many documents sealed from public record? If it was about political connections, why? The media frenzy showed no signs of slowing down, and theories, speculation, and unanswered questions continued to spread, making Joni Lamb's case one of the most talked about scandals of the decade. However, one thing became clearer every day: whatever the FBI found inside that mansion had the potential to change everything. Had more names been revealed, and if Joni had been keeping secrets, who else knew about them?